The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Eliana Reyes stepped onto the speaking platform. 500 alien representatives from across the known universe watched her with a mixture of curiosity, disdain, and barely concealed fear. The enormous circular chamber, carved from a single massive crystal of unknown origin, amplified her footsteps. Eliana appeared small against the backdrop of the imposing council. Architecture, a lone human facing the collected might of a 1,000-year-old interstellar governing body. The humans send one representative. The Grand Arbiter Voxtal's voice boomed through the chamber, his 6 eyes narrowing on the platform. His massive form, 3 times the height of a human, shifted forward. This is the response to our summons? Your species stands accused of illegal technological advancement and weapons development. The Council expected your full diplomatic corps. Eliana smiled slightly. Grand Arbiter, esteemed Council members, I speak with the full authority of Earth's United Nations. I am sufficient. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Thraxian delegation's tentacles writhed in agitation, while the crystalline Morduvians chimed their displeasure. You've been monitored since your species achieved faster than light. Capability 30 Earth years ago, continued Voxtal. The evidence against humanity is considerable. Your rapid technological advancement violates Statute 17 of the Galactic Charter. Your weapons research threatens the stability of this sector. Eliana remained composed. We've reviewed your evidence, Grand Arbiter. With respect, we disagree with your assessment. Disagree? A representative from the Kelborn hegemony slammed a clawed appendage onto their console. Your species has developed phase-shifting technology in 1/10 the time it took the Ardulian Science Collective. Your quantum computing capabilities doubled in the last Earth decade. Is innovation a crime now? Eliana asked, her voice calm but carrying throughout the chamber. When it threatens the established order, yes, replied Voxtal. The Council exists to maintain balance. Your species advances too quickly, too unpredictably. The decision has already been made. A holographic display materialized above the central dais, showing a massive fleet of warships. This armada will arrive at your homeworld in 7 standard days, announced Voxtal. Your colonies will be dismantled. Your technology will be confiscated. Your population will be subject to genetic modification to limit your cognitive capabilities. Eliana didn't flinch. Instead, she laughed, a sound so unexpected that several council members recoiled. Grand Arbiter, she said, I was sent here not to plead but to deliver a message. Earth has voted unanimously on our response to your demands. She pressed a small device on her wrist. The chamber's lights flickered momentarily, and then a new hologram appeared. A simple image of Earth. We're leaving, she stated. Leaving? Voxtal's voice betrayed confusion. Evacuation is futile. We know the location of all your colonies. Not evacuating, corrected Eliana. Earth itself is leaving. You see, what your monitoring missed is that we weren't building weapons. We were building engines. The hologram zoomed out, revealing massive structures embedded into Earth's crust at strategic points around the planet. Impossible, whispered a Zolarian scientist. The energy requirements alone would... We solved the zero-point energy equation 12 years ago, Eliana interrupted. We just didn't tell you. Panic erupted in the chamber as the implications became clear. As we speak, continued Eliana, raising her voice above the chaos, Earth is disconnecting from your mapped space-time. We're taking our planet to a location of our choosing, beyond your reach. Our colonies have already begun similar procedures. Voxtal rose to his full height. This is an act of defiance against the Council's authority. Your species will be what? Challenged Eliana. Gone, and with us the knowledge of how we did it. But that's not all. She pressed her device again. The hologram changed to show hundreds of small satellites orbiting various worlds, Council worlds. These are gifts we've left behind, she explained. Quantum observation devices. If any human settlement is attacked, or if you attempt to follow us, these will activate a cascading failure in the phase space barriers that protect your core worlds from dimensional bleed. Deathly silence fell over the chamber. You wouldn't, whispered Voxtal. It would mean the destruction of trillions. We wouldn't want to, agreed Eliana, which is why we're choosing to walk away instead. Live and let live, Grand Arbiter, an ancient human saying. She stepped down from the platform. This meeting is concluded. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Charter. Effective immediately. We wish you peace in our absence. As Eliana walked toward the exit, not a single council member moved to stop her. The sound of her footsteps echoed once more through the silent chamber, a reminder of the species that had outmaneuvered the most powerful governing body in the galaxy. Behind her, fear began to spread through the council like a virus. A species that could move planets and had seeded their worlds with potential devastation had just walked away. And the terrifying question remained. What if they decided to come back? 3 days after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council remained in emergency session. The once orderly chamber had dissolved into shouting matches between factions. Some demanded immediate military action, others called for caution, and a growing minority whispered that perhaps humanity should be left alone. "We cannot allow this precedent," thundered Representative Gull of the Terran Collective. "If one species can simply leave the council, others will follow." Voxtal slammed his ceremonial staff on the floor. "Silence. Our priority must be determining if the human threats are real. Have the observation devices been examined?" A nervous quantium scientist stepped forward. "We've analyzed 3 devices so far, Grand Arbiter. They contain technology beyond our understanding. Attempting to disable one resulted in complications." "What complications?" demanded Voxtal. "The research station no longer exists," the scientist replied quietly. Fresh panic swept the chamber. Voxtal's many eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of severe stress in his species. "We must locate Earth," he declared finally. "Until we understand how they've done this, we are vulnerable." In the back of the chamber, a shadow moved slightly. Unnoticed by the council, a figure slipped away through a maintenance corridor. The observer, who had once been human but was now something more, transmitted its findings through subspace. Earth would need to know that the hunt had already begun. Admiral Jorax of the Krell Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Unyielding Might, watching as his engineers struggled to understand the human device. The metallic sphere, no larger than his fist, had been recovered from orbit around Krell Prime. It sat innocently in a containment field, defying all attempts at analysis. "Any progress?" Jorax asked his chief scientist. "None, Admiral," replied the scientist, his scaled skin glistening under the ship's lights. "The quantum structure resists all conventional scanning methods." Jorax's 4 eyes narrowed. The Galactic Council had fractured in the 3 weeks since humanity's dramatic exit. The Krell Empire, always ambitious, had seen an opportunity. While the Council argued, Jorax had been quietly dispatched with a simple mission. Find Earth and claim its technology for the Empire. "Break it open," he ordered. "Admiral, the Council specifically ordered—" "The Council is paralyzed by fear," snapped Jorax. "Break it open." The scientist hesitated, then nodded to a technician. A cutting beam engaged, slicing toward the sphere. The device simply disappeared. Alarms blared across the ship. "Energy surge detected," shouted an officer. On the main view screen, a ripple appeared in empty space. The ripple expanded, forming a swirling portal of blue-white energy. Before Jorax could give an order, a small craft emerged. It was clearly of human design, sleek and silver, with no visible propulsion system. It hovered before the massive Krell warship like a predator contemplating its prey. "Weapons," barked Jorax. "Weapons are not responding," replied his tactical officer, panic in his voice. "All systems are being overridden. A transmission came through on all frequencies. This is Captain Marcus Reed of Earth Defense. You have activated a Sentinel device." "Stand down," Jorax snarled. "This is Admiral Jorax of the Krell Empire. Your threats are meaningless. The Council knows your devices are bluffs." A chuckle came through the comm. "Is that what they're telling themselves?" Reed's voice was almost sympathetic. "Admiral, we left those devices as warnings, not threats. That one you just tried to dissect was monitoring your homeworld's dimensional stability. Not smart to mess with it." On the secondary screens, reports flooded in from Krell Prime. Gravitational anomalies were appearing in the upper atmosphere. "What have you done?" demanded Jorax. "Nothing permanent," Reed assured him. "Just a small reminder. The anomalies will fade in a few hours. Consider this a courtesy call. The next tampering might trigger something less irreversible." Across the bridge, systems began coming back online. The human craft backed toward the portal. "Wait," called Jorax. "Where is Earth?" "What are you planning?" Reed's voice carried a smile. "We're not planning anything against you, Admiral. We just wanted to be left alone." But since your empire seems particularly interested in us, we'll be keeping a closer eye on you. Good day. The craft slipped back into the portal, which closed with a flash of light. Jorax stood frozen, his proud military bearing shaken. The humans hadn't just walked away, they were still watching. And they could reach out and touch any world they chose. When he reported this encounter to his superiors, the Krell Empire officially withdrew from the Council's search efforts the next day. Back on the fractured Council, the news of the Krell incident spread quickly. In a secret chamber beneath the main hall, 7 representatives from the most powerful Council species met in an emergency conclave. The humans must be found, insisted Representative Morn of the Vexillian Confederacy. These demonstrations of power are intolerable. And yet we cannot follow them, countered Delegate Prill of the Tundari. Each attempt has been met with warnings, and the warnings grow more severe. Voxtal, looking more haggard than he had weeks before, leaned heavily on his staff. We have lost 16 research outposts. 3 minor colony worlds report dimensional instabilities. The humans have turned our own space against us. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Perhaps we're asking the wrong questions. The representatives turned to see Dr. Nix Vala, the Council's foremost xenoanthropologist. The willowy, pale figure floated into the chamber, her feet never touching the floor. We've been asking where humanity went, she said. We should be asking why they left and what they're becoming. Explain, commanded Voxtal. Nix Vala projected a series of images, human brain scans spanning 3 decades. When humans achieved faster-than-light travel, their neural patterns began changing. Subtly at first, then dramatically. I believe their technological advancements were symptoms of a species-wide evolutionary leap. You're suggesting they've become something beyond physical? Asked Morn incredulously. I'm suggesting, replied Nix Vala, that moving their planet was only the first step. Earth didn't just change location, it's changing state. And the humans who remain behind, who operate these devices, are not what they appear to be. Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Then what do we do? Whispered Prill. We wait, said Nix Vala, and we prepare. Because I don't think they're done with us yet. On a distant world at the edge of charted space, Marcus Reed stepped out of his craft and onto crimson soil. The binary sunset cast long shadows as he approached a simple structure built into a hillside. Inside, dozens of humans worked at stations monitoring thousands of sentinel devices across Council space. On the central display, a map showed the location of every known spacefaring civilization. A woman approached. The Krell got the message. Reed nodded. They did, Director Reyes. Eliana Reyes, the ambassador who had stood before the Council weeks ago, smiled. Good, and the others? The Vexillians are still probing, but cautiously. The Morduvians have withdrawn completely. The Tundari are reaching out through back channels, seeking dialogue. And Earth? Reed's eyes glowed slightly as he accessed data beyond normal human perception. The transition is proceeding as planned. 87% of the population has begun the shift. The rest will follow within days. Eliana nodded, satisfied. They were so afraid we were building weapons. They never realized we were building something much more powerful. A new form of existence, agreed Reed. And soon, said Eliana, looking at the galactic map, they'll understand why we had to leave before we could return. The colony world of Nova Terra burned. Admiral Jorax watched from the bridge of his flagship as Krell dropships descended through the atmosphere. Despite the warnings, despite the incidents, the Krell Empire had gambled on finding answers here. Nova Terra was unique, a human colony that had failed to shift when Earth departed. Nearly 30,000 colonists remained, stranded when their planetary engines malfunctioned. Status report, demanded Jorax. Minimal resistance, Admiral, replied his second-in-command. The human defenses were not as formidable as intelligence suggested, Jorax grunted, unconvinced. The humans would not leave their people unprotected. Maintain alert status. On the surface, Krell soldiers moved through the colony's main settlement. Buildings stood empty, possessions left behind in apparent haste. The Colonial Administration Center, a 7-story prefabricated structure at the city center, became their focus. Commander Vex, leading the ground forces, approached the building cautiously. Life signs. 1, Commander, reported a soldier. Human, top floor. Vex deployed his forces around the building before entering with an elite squad. They moved efficiently through the abandoned offices until they reached the top floor. There, in what appeared to be the governor's office, sat an elderly human male. He was thin with white hair and deeply lined skin. He looked up from a book as the soldiers entered, seeming unsurprised. "Governor Raymond Bennett," he said calmly. "Welcome to Nova Terra, though I can't say your arrival method was diplomatic." Vex leveled his weapon. "Where are your people, human?" Bennett closed his book. "Gone. They evacuated 3 days ago when our sensors detected your fleet approaching." "Impossible. We were using stealth technology." The old man smiled. "Nothing is truly hidden anymore, Commander. Not since we started seeing differently." Beck stepped closer. "You will tell us how to find Earth." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Bennett replied. "But I've been instructed to give you a message if captured." Vex hesitated, then lowered his weapon slightly. "Speak. Humanity is changing," said Bennett. "What we're becoming requires space, dimensional space. We left because our transformation would have had side effects on nearby worlds. We're not your enemies. You threaten our worlds with your devices." "We protect ourselves," corrected Bennett. "There's a difference." A soldier approached Vex. "Commander, we found their database." "It's intact," Vex smiled coldly. "Then we don't need this one to talk. Take him to the ship for proper interrogation." As they led Bennett away, the old man spoke softly. "You still don't understand. I stayed behind voluntarily." "To witness." "Witness what?" asked Vex. Bennett's eyes suddenly seemed to look through Vex rather than at him. The reaction. On the unyielding Might, Jorax watched as his science team extracted data from the colonial servers. Most files were corrupted or encrypted beyond their ability to crack, but some yielded information: star charts, communication logs, research notes. "This confirms it," said his chief scientist excitedly. "Earth didn't just move through space, it moved partially out of phase with normal space-time. Can we track it?" demanded Jorax. "Perhaps," the scientist replied. "These equations suggest a dimensional signature that might be traceable." Jorax turned to his communications officer. "Contact High Command. Tell them we've found." An alarm blared. The tactical officer's voice rose in panic. "Admiral, the quantum observation devices throughout the system, they're activating." "What, how many?" "All of them, sir. Hundreds." On screens throughout the bridge, small satellites throughout the Nova Terra system began to pulse with energy. Spatial distortions formed around them, growing rapidly. "The prisoner," Jorax snapped. "Bring him here." When Bennett was brought to the bridge, he appeared calm despite the rough handling by the guards. "Call them off," ordered Jorax. "Tell your people to deactivate the devices." Bennett shook his head. "I don't have that authority, Admiral. The Sentinels respond to aggression automatically. Taking me prisoner wasn't wise." "You planned this," Jorax realized. "This colony was bait." "Not bait," Bennett corrected. "A message delivery system. Nova Terra was always scheduled for transition. We just delayed it to give the Council time to reconsider its position." The tactical officer interrupted. "Admiral, the devices are creating some kind of network. The spatial distortions are connecting. Outside the ship, space itself seemed to fold and ripple as hundreds of distortion fields linked together, creating a lattice pattern that surrounded the Krell fleet." "What is happening?" demanded Jorax. Bennett's voice was almost compassionate. "The final warning, Admiral. You sought to hunt us, to steal our technology, to threaten our existence. Now you'll understand why we left." The lattice of energy pulsed once brilliantly, then contracted. When the light faded, the Nova Terra system appeared unchanged, except that every Krell ship was now surrounded by a shimmering field of energy. "We're trapped in some kind of bubble," reported the tactical officer. "Weapons non-functional. Engines non-functional." Bennett stood straighter, his elderly frame suddenly seeming stronger. "Your ships will be released in 3 days once Nova Terra has completed its transition. You'll be free to return to your empire with the knowledge you've gained today." "Which is what?" snarled Jorax. "That humanity didn't leave out of fear," Bennett replied. "We left out of compassion. What we're becoming could have destroyed you all by accident." As if on cue, the planet below began to shimmer. Clouds swirled unnaturally, and the surface seemed to ripple like water. "The transition is beginning," said Bennett, watching with obvious fascination. "An entire world shifting partially out of phase with normal spacetime." For 3 days, the Krell fleet hung helpless in orbit, watching as Nova Terra gradually became transparent, then translucent, then simply vanished, leaving empty space where a world had been. When the energy bubbles around their ships finally dissipated, Admiral Jorax gave a single order. "Take us home." News of the Nova Terra incident spread quickly through the Galactic Council. Dr. Nix Vala presented her findings to an emergency session. "The Krell data confirms my theory," she explained. "Humanity is undergoing a species-wide metamorphosis, evolving into beings that exist partially outside conventional space-time." "How is this possible?" demanded Voxtal. "Their faster-than-light technology changed them," Nix Vala replied. "Each time humans traveled through hyperspace, their neural patterns subtly altered. Over generations, these changes accumulated until they reached a tipping point. What do they want?" asked Representative Morn Nix Vala, projected the message recovered from Nova Terra. "According to this, they want to complete their evolution without harming other species. The quantum observation devices aren't weapons. They're stabilizers, preventing dimensional bleed from their transition. So they protect us while threatening us," mused Voxtal. "No, Grand Arbiter, I believe they're showing remarkable restraint. Based on these readings, a fully transitioned human could manipulate space-time with a thought. They could have destroyed the Krell fleet, instead they simply held it in place." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They had threatened a species that was becoming something beyond their comprehension, and that species had responded with warnings rather than destruction. "Then what should we do?" asked Prill of the Tundari. Nix Vala's answer was simple. "Wait, and hope they still consider us worth talking to when their transformation is complete." The Galactic Council's primary shipyard at Terminus Station exploded in a brilliant flash of blue-white light. No weapons had been fired. No saboteurs detected. One moment, the massive installation housing 200 warships existed. The next, it simply didn't. In the council chamber, panic reigned. Representatives shouted accusations across the floor while Voxtal struggled to maintain order. "The humans have attacked," bellowed Representative Gull. "After weeks of warnings, they've finally struck." "We don't know that," countered Prill of the Tundari. "There's no evidence. 20,000 workers vanished in an instant." Gull slammed his fist on the console. "What more evidence do you need?" Dr. Nix Vala floated to the central platform. "Grand Arbiter, with your permission." Voxtal nodded wearily. "The Terminus incident was not an attack," she said, her voice carrying through the chamber. "Our preliminary analysis shows a dimensional fracture, a natural phenomenon, but one we've never recorded before." "Natural?" scoffed Gull. "The timing is too convenient." Nix Vala projected data onto the main display. "The fracture originated from within Terminus itself, specifically from Research Bay 17, where scientists were attempting to analyze a quantum observation device." Silence fell over the chamber. "They were trying to dismantle it," she continued, "despite explicit warnings from both the humans and my research team." Voxtal's many eyes blinked rapidly. "Are you suggesting this was an accident?" "Not an accident," came a new voice. "An inevitability." All eyes turned toward the entrance, where a human figure stood. Not Ambassador Reyes, but a man many recognized from intelligence briefings. Director Thomas Harlow of Earth's Dimensional Research Initiative. "How did you get in here?" demanded Voxtal. "This chamber is sealed during emergency sessions." Harlow walked forward, his movements oddly fluid. "Physical barriers are becoming negotiable for us." Guards moved to intercept him, weapons drawn. Harlow continued walking as if they weren't there. When the first guard tried to grab him, his hand passed through Harlow's arm like smoke. "Please," said Harlow, reaching the center of the chamber. "I'm not fully here. This is a projection, though more substantial than a hologram. What have you done with Terminus Station?" demanded Gull. "We didn't do anything to your station," replied Harlow. "Your scientists did it to themselves. The quantum observation devices aren't weapons. They're dimensional anchors, stabilizing the boundary between normal space and the dimensional fold where Earth now resides." He gestured, and a complex holographic model appeared beside him, a twisting, intricate structure representing space-time. When your scientists attempted to dismantle the device, they tore the fabric between dimensions. Terminus Station didn't explode, it fell through the tear. "Fell where?" asked Nix Vala, professional curiosity overriding fear. "Into the fold," answered Harlow. "The same space Earth now occupies. Don't worry, we've contained the station and evacuated the survivors. Survivors? Voxtal leaned forward. Our people are alive? Most of them, confirmed Harlow. We couldn't save everyone. Dimensional transition is traumatic for unprepared beings. Relief mixed with renewed tension in the chamber. Their people were alive, but completely at human mercy. Why are you here, Director Harlow? Asked Voxtal. To deliver a message and a choice. Harlow's form flickered slightly. Humanity's transition is nearing completion. Soon Earth will exist fully in the dimensional fold beyond your reach, but not beyond your perception. Meaning what exactly? Pressed Prill. Meaning that what happened at Terminus is happening elsewhere on a smaller scale. The dimensional boundaries are weakening. Natural fractures will begin appearing throughout the galaxy as our transition nears completion. Harlow projected a new image, a galaxy map showing hundreds of glowing points. These are fracture points, places where space-time has grown thin. Most are uninhabited regions, but several points flashed red, threatened populated worlds. Council members murmured in alarm, checking if their homeworlds were among the threatened. The quantum observation devices were placed to prevent this, continued Harlow. They reinforce dimensional boundaries, protecting your worlds from bleed-through effects. Your scientists have been systematically attempting to dismantle them. Because they appeared to be weapons, protested Goal. We sent warnings, countered Harlow, which were ignored. Now we offer a choice. He gestured again, and the galactic map zoomed in on the council worlds. Accept our help. Allow us to stabilize the fracture points. Stop interfering with the observation network. In return, we'll ensure your worlds remain safe during our transition and establish communication protocols for after. And the alternative? Asked Voxtal quietly. Harlow's expression grew somber. We focus exclusively on protecting Earth and our colonies. The natural fractures will continue spreading. Some worlds will experience temporal anomalies, others spatial distortions. Some may shift partially into the fold, as Terminus did. This is blackmail, snarled Gull. This is physics, corrected Harlow. We didn't create this situation intentionally. Our evolution has consequences we didn't fully anticipate. We're offering to mitigate those consequences. Nixvala moved closer to the human projection. Director, these fractures, can beings other than humans travel through them? Harlow nodded. With proper protection and guidance, yes. In fact, the survivors from Terminus have already experienced dimensional shift. They're changed by it. Changed how? Demanded Voxtal. Increased neural activity. Enhanced perception. The beginnings of the same transformation affecting humans. Harlow smiled slightly. They're scared, but adapting remarkably well. The implications stunned the Council into silence. Not only were humans evolving into something beyond normal space-time, but the process might extend to other species. You have 12 hours to decide, said Harlow. We'll return the Terminus survivors regardless of your choice. They've been through enough. With those words, his projection wavered and disappeared. In the ensuing chaos, Dr. Nixvala approached Voxtal. Grand Arbiter, I believe Director Harlow was telling the truth. My instruments detected genuine dimensional anomalies throughout his appearance. Can we survive without their help? Asked Voxtal quietly. I don't think so, admitted Nixvala. The fractures are accelerating. 3 minor systems have reported distortion effects in the past day alone. Voxtal looked around the chamber, where representatives argued vehemently, and if we accept their help. Then we acknowledge a new reality, she replied. That humanity hasn't just walked away. They've evolved beyond us, and we must either follow or be left behind. The Arbiter nodded slowly. Prepare a response. Tell them we accept their terms. As the council session adjourned, a figure watched from the shadows. Not a human projection this time, but something between states, part physical, part energy. Once called Marcus Reed, now something more. He smiled as he slipped through a small dimensional fracture, returning to the fold where Earth now resided. The Council had made the right choice, though they didn't yet understand what it truly meant. Humanity hadn't left to escape the Galactic Council. They had left to prepare the way for everyone to follow. A blinding light filled the skies of every Council world. For 7 minutes, day turned to brilliant white regardless of the local time. When it faded, astronomers across the galaxy reported the same phenomenon. Earth had returned, but not as it had been. The blue-green world now pulsed with energy patterns visible across the electromagnetic spectrum. Massive structures orbited it, geometric shapes that seemed to fold in on themselves in ways that defied conventional physics. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives gathered in stunned silence, watching the live feeds from observation posts. "They came back," whispered Prill. "After everything, they came back." Voxtal, looking aged beyond his years, leaned heavily on his staff. "Summon Dr. Nixavala. We need to understand what we're seeing." Before the order could be carried out, the chamber's central platform illuminated. No one had activated it, yet a figure now stood there, Ambassador Eliana Reyes, the human who had walked away from the council months ago, except she wasn't entirely human anymore. Reyes' form shifted subtly, as if struggling to maintain a consistent shape. Her eyes glowed with inner light, and when she moved, after images trailed behind her. "Greetings, Grand Arbiter," she said, her voice resonating oddly. "The Dimensional Council of Earth thanks you for your patience during our transition." Voxtal straightened as much as his aged frame allowed. "Ambassador Reyes, your return is unexpected, but not unplanned," she replied with a smile. "Our evolution is complete. Earth has fully transformed into its new state, a dimensional nexus capable of existing in multiple realities simultaneously." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Reyes waited for them to subside before continuing. "We've stabilized the fracture points throughout council space. The dimensional boundaries are secure again. Terminus Station and its survivors have been returned to normal space, though they may find their perspective changed." "Why have you returned?" asked Voxtal directly. "You went to such lengths to leave." "We left because we had to," explained Reyes. "The initial stages of our transition would have caused catastrophic dimensional disruptions if we'd remained. But now that we've stabilized in our new state, we can safely interact with normal space again," she gestured. And a holographic display appeared, a complex network connecting Earth to various points throughout the galaxy. "We've created a dimensional transit system," she continued. "Stable pathways between normal space and the fold. With proper protection, your ships can now travel through these pathways." "To what end?" demanded Representative Ghoul, still suspicious. "To reduce travel time between distant systems from years to moments," replied Reyes. "To access energy sources beyond anything your current technology allows. To begin your own evolution, if you choose it." The chamber erupted in exclamations of disbelief and excitement. Voxtal raised his staff for silence. "You offer us evolution?" he asked cautiously. "We offer you choice," corrected Reyes. "The survivors of Terminus Station experienced dimensional shift without preparation. It changed them, but they adapted. Others can follow the same path gradually and safely." "Becoming like you," said Voxtal. "Becoming more," Reyes replied. "Each species will experience the transition differently. We've only discovered the first steps of a journey that could take millennia to complete." Dr. Nixavala entered the chamber, moving quickly to the central platform. She carried readings taken from Earth's reappearance. "The energy patterns are extraordinary," she reported. "Earth isn't just generating power, it's channeling it from somewhere else. Another dimension entirely." Reyes nodded. "What your instruments detect is merely the echo of what Earth has become. The physical planet you see is only partially in this reality now." "And its population?" asked Prill. "Are they still human?" "We remember being human," Reyes said carefully. "We retain our identities, our memories, our values. But we've gained perception beyond physical limitations. We exist in multiple states simultaneously." She demonstrated by allowing her form to shift, becoming momentarily transparent, then solid again. When she spoke next, her voice came from everywhere in the chamber at once. "We can observe all possible timelines, interact with parallel realities, manipulate space-time in ways we once thought impossible." The display changed, showing humans, or what had been humans, moving through solid objects, appearing in multiple places simultaneously, manipulating energy with thought alone. "And now," continued Reyes, her form solidifying again, "we invite the galaxy to join us. Not through conquest or coercion, but through partnership." Voxtal studied her for a long moment. "The Council feared you would return as conquerors." "That was never our intention," she replied. "We left to protect you from the side effects of our evolution. We return to share what we've learned." "And if we refuse?" asked Ghoul. Then you continue as you are, said Reyes simply. We'll maintain the dimensional boundaries to prevent fractures. Those who wish to explore the new frontier may do so. Those who prefer traditional existence may continue it. The choice belongs to each world, each species, each individual. The chamber fell silent as the magnitude of the offer sank in. After months of fear and preparation for conflict, the humans had returned not as vengeful gods but as guides. There will be conditions, said Voxtal finally. Safeguards. Of course, agreed Reyes. We propose a new charter, not to replace the Galactic Council but to establish protocols for dimensional transition. Earth will share its knowledge, but each world must determine its own path. And what do you gain from this? Asked Nixvala. Reyes smiled and for a moment looked entirely human again. Companions on the journey. Evolution is lonely when experienced alone. In the days that followed, ships from across the galaxy approached Earth cautiously. Some carried diplomats, others scientists, all coming to witness what humanity had become. They found not the militarized world they had feared, but a transformed planet pulsing with energy and possibility. The dimensional pathways Reyes had described became visible to approaching vessels, tunnels of light connecting distant points in space. In orbit around Earth, a massive station took shape, the Nexus, designed as neutral ground where physical beings could safely interact with those who had undergone transition. On the Nexus, Marcus Reed greeted the first official council delegation, no longer pretending to be fully human. His form shifted between states as he guided them through chambers designed to gradually expose visitors to dimensional energies. The transition isn't instantaneous, he explained to wide-eyed diplomats. Full transformation takes time and preparation. But even limited exposure brings benefits: extended lifespan, enhanced perception, resistance to environmental hazards. And the risks? Asked a Tundari scientist. Mental disorientation is common initially, admitted Reed. Seeing multiple realities simultaneously can be overwhelming. That's why we've developed these chambers to acclimate gradually. In a more private meeting, Voxtal spoke with Eliana Reyes one final time before retiring as Grand Arbiter. You could have conquered us, he said bluntly. When you left, we thought it was fear driving you away. When you returned, we feared it was vengeance bringing you back. Instead, you offer transcendence. Fear and vengeance are human emotions, replied Reyes. We remember them, but they no longer control us. What we've gained is perspective, and what happens next? Asked the old Arbiter. Reyes gestured toward the viewport where Earth pulsed with dimensional energy. Expansion, exploration, evolution, the beginning of a new chapter for all sentient life. As ships from across the galaxy continued to arrive, the fear that had gripped the Galactic Council for months finally began to fade. Humanity hadn't just walked away, they had walked ahead, blazing a trail for others to follow. And though some worlds chose to remain as they were, watching cautiously from a distance, many more took their first tentative steps toward the dimensional fold where Earth now resided. The first steps toward becoming something more than they had ever imagined possible.